The Effects of Immigration and Migration on the Workforce in the South from 1600 to 1860s by Lisbeth, Argueta, and Samarly Felix.
Immigration and migration. In America, there was a lot of migration from Europe to the colonies because it was said that there was a lot of land, opportunity, and freedom. Two forms of immigration and migration in the southern colonies were indentured servants and African slaves. Indentured servants, in exchange for passage, room, and board, had to work for their masters for 7 years and then leave freely in the southern colonies. However, later on, millions of Africans were forcibly taken to America during the slave trade and sold, and they had to work until they died. They never had freedom. This graph shows how in York County, Virginia, from 1657 to 1694, the number of indentured servants decreased while the number of African slaves increased.
Workforce. In the southern colonies, there was a lot of land. Because of this, they needed people to work that land. So, African indentured slaves came to help. Context. Due to the southern colonies having acres of land, they needed help from others in order to work it. However, labor wasn't cheap. Indentured servants were given the promise that if they worked in the labor force for 7+ years, they would be given a free passage and a room. However, as production of cotton started to grow in the southern colonies, more Africans were forced out of their homes and brought to the Americas under harsh conditions, resulting in slavery, where one is owned or considered as another's property. Overall, from there being a lot of land, there needed to be a labor force to tend that land.
This map shows the major exports from the southern colonies in 1750. Most part of the southern colonies exported furs and skins. In Jamestown and Maryland, they exported tobacco. In North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, the East Port, they had rice and indigo. In South Carolina and North Carolina, they had timber and naval supplies. Also, in some parts of Virginia, Maryland, North Carolina, and South Carolina, they had cattle and grain. The causes of immigration and migration affecting the workforce in the South is that in the South they had many acres of land. The land that people bought were cheap, but they needed people to work that land, and those people were expensive. An example of the land was that in Jamestown during winter of 1611, they grew tobacco to save the colony. Another example of using the land was that cotton was also grown in other areas later on.
Effects of immigration on the workforce. There were indentured servants to work that land for 7 years. Then, from the triangle trade, they had slaves to work that land for longer. From there being new labor forces in the colonies, they had more crops to grow. They had a crash crop economy. Cotton began to spread throughout the South. Rebellions from their laborers, such as Bacon's Rebellion. More Africans are being sent to the Americas against their will. This also led to slavery.
This map shows the triangle trade. From North America to Europe, they sent sugar, tobacco, and cotton. From Europe to Africa, they sent textiles, rum, and manufactured goods. Then from Africa to North America, they sent slaves.